Okay, good morning, everyone. So I do apologize. It's going to be the last session for the keynote speaker. So, I had a little bit of scare this morning. The traffic in Bangalore was unusually crazy, but I'm sure most of you have been here early enough. So thank you for coming in. My name is Sajid. I'm part of an engineering division in Goldman Sachs. And one of the objectives of today's session is, this is not a commercial pitch, so I'm not here to tell you why one product is better than the other, but largely what I call the hitchhiker's guide to the cloud, both private and public, right? It's about our real-life journey that we have taken over the last 7-8 years of how do we get here. But before I start, I just want to know by a show of hands, how many of you are really focused on migrating your applications to the cloud platform today? Just by show of hands. Okay. How many of you are at that problem for more than 1 year? Okay. We speak about context, and context is something that's going to be very, very important. And as we speak through the next set of sessions, I will kind of share with you what are some of the challenges we face and how we were actually approaching it. But before we get to that, it's important for all of you to understand what does Goldman Sachs do in the context of engineering, right? It's not something that we are very well renowned for. When I talk about innovation, it's very difficult for most of you to appreciate what Goldman does from an innovation perspective. It is not something that we are known for. It is not something that we are known in the street for, but internally, the amount of stuff we do is amazingly great. So 1 out of 4 employees in Goldman Sachs is in engineering, engineering or technologies, as we like to call them, right? We generate over 1.5 billion lines of code. Our CVS repository almost checks in about 500 meg of code on a daily basis. So the number of engineers that we have is amazing. It's about 8,000 of us churning away code every day. We have close to 7,000 applications. So much of the examples you've seen here today are very bespoke, discrete. Enterprises don't deal that way. Enterprises have a combination of multiple applications and how they interface and work with each other. And they support different lines of business. They have to deal with different regulatory requirements and so on and so forth. We have about 1.2 million cores on the public cloud, which is about roughly 200,000 servers for the more infrastructure-based mindshare that we have here. So what do we do from an engineering perspective, and how do we actually serve our clients? So there are 3 basic components in Goldman Sachs. Engineering, which is at the heart of everything that we do today. We also have risk management, which is another significant area that we are absolutely focused on. And last but least is distribution, and I'll cover this very quickly. Risk is not about everything that you talk about. It's not about cyber, it's not about data privacy, but it's about giving information to our clients, the right information to our clients, so that they can make the right commercial decision from an investment point of view. This is a big part of every business that you find in the world. Nobody does business with you for the sake of just doing business. They're all in the business of revenue. And that's one of our cornerstones and principles. The other important thing is distribution, right? Distribution is a powerful thing because with distribution comes the 3 most important factors. One is, how do we actually get new ideas and new solutions to our clients in the marketplace? And many of the solutions that we are driving today is largely around it. So just to quickly cover this, there are 3 case studies I'm going to talk today. The first one is, being a traditional firm, a big part of our businesses have been serving institutional clients. These are large institutional firms who are doing this. But one of the areas that we eventually found out was reaching out to the retail business. And to that effect, we have now a business called as Marcus, which is an online lending platform. The advantage we had was we don't have ATMs, we don't have bank branches. What we have is a pure digital platform. The beautiful thing about the digital platform, we built it in exactly 12 months. And that's how fast we have actually done that. The next important thing there is Marquee. Because you build so many internal applications, a lot of our clients said, how do we have exposure to many of these, right? How do we give access to your internal tools? How do we get access to your calculators, the algorithms you built? We built a platform called as Marquee, which effectively allows anyone, any of our clients, if they have internet connections, we provide them internal access to our platforms. That's one of the things. Last but least, Symphony. I don't know how many of you know Symphony. I know many of the people here believe that data is something that you should freely share between applications. Guess what? Sooner than later, the regulators will step in. I needn't tell you what has happened in the last 2 weeks. Regulations will eventually drive what data can be shared. Privacy is a big thing. Do not ignore it, because that is fundamental to how you write code and how you build those code and how you deploy this code. And so it's going to be very important for us. So about 2 years ago, we embarked on this philosophy of creating an intra-bank messaging chat applications, because our clients were not comfortable dealing with this on the public. We found that application we built, Symphony, so good, so useful, that we decided to outsource it. So we decided to get it into the public sourcing. We made the intellectual the IP rights for the code to be available to the third party. Today it's used by over 250,000 applications, 250,000 consumers in variety of banking and financial sectors. So I'm going to accelerate this a little bit, right? When you look at technology today, right, what are the 5 things that drives technology? And this is very important because that's the cornerstone of everything you're going to see here. Cloud is going to be number 1 on everybody's list. That's not going to change. The other important thing is going to be the digital platform, right? Getting your traditional applications more available to the third-party consumers. And this is something that is going to be a fundamental driver. The third, quite obviously, is going to be data. Data is going to be a big part of that change. And fourth, last but least, if I don't talk about machine learning and data science, it'll be inappropriate in a conference like this, so I will put it out there. But these are the 4 fundamental things that fundamentally drive that. But the big change in Goldman Sachs right now is how do you get our developers to be cloud native? Many of our applications were built 25 to 30 years old back. Many of these applications fundamentally have to be re-platformed and rebuilt. And a big part of what we're doing today is actually getting that platform out there. So the 3 things that we obviously are talking about is the architecture, a revisiting of all the architectures we built. The second most important thing is how do we deploy it? Here's where containers come into play, and containers play a massive part in how we are going to drive this in the future. And last but least, DevOps, which is a fundamental thing that we do. Right. So where did our journey for public cloud start? It started with one of our business lines, which is largely dealing with regulatory risk, market risk, which wanted about 100,000 cores for about 6 hours a week, right? Our traditional model would have been to add another field, add another 100,000 servers into those fields and have it deployed for our internal consumption. We were at an inflection point where we felt that is not sustainable. That is where our public cloud journey actually started. But the challenge with public cloud, which with the sensitivity around data and data privacy, is how do you create a container within a public cloud that's not on a shared platform? This is the number 1 challenge that most of you are going to face as you try to deploy applications on the enterprise, right? So it was important for us to get to a solution where we need to control the environment. We are pretty fanatic, so we want to have the full control of the environment because our clients would like that. The other important thing is how do we guarantee your data, right? A lot of you would have thought in the few weeks how much you use your phone, what are the level of data that you're trying to access. Most of you have gone into majority of your, how many of you have gone to your phones and opened your application and gone to the privacy options of your apps? Right? Had I asked you this question a year back on this conference, most of you would not have raised your hands. So you can see effectively how much that is fundamentally changing the distribution. What is this? It's nothing but a locker, right? It's a safe deposit box. Most of the middle-class Indians or anyone in India would have an SBI account, and associated with that would be a bank locker, right? But despite having this, you have a security standing outside, it's fortified behind a fort, everything is very, very well secured. Why do you still have that 150 rupees Godrej locker, which is still, you put it on top of the lock? Because you effectively do not trust the institution which holds your locker, which is something that we also are extremely worried. So we work with a couple of our cloud partners to coming up with what is known as BYOK, or bring your own key, which effectively gives only us the right to access to our data. All right, so this is where we have to talk about, right? While application teams are heavily built on re-architecting and re-platforming their applications, one of the things we are more interested in is in how do we focus on the platform side. As an organization, platform is a philosophy that Goldman Sachs got involved about 3 years ago, which is effectively there are certain things that are foundational for the rest of the firm. And no developer in any of our business lines or in any of our teams are going to be busy rebuilding those. So it was very important for us, how do we actually get across? So the 3 or 4 things that we have embarked on is a resilient network. We wanted to make sure as you deployed your applications, you're not constrained by talking a sysadmin here and there and trying to make sure your applications are provisioned for access. We want to make sure your build, test, deploy framework is absolutely resilient. The other important thing is we had an in-house strategy of a public cloud, which we started about 6 years. But the way we built it is we didn't go through the third-party players straight on. We knew the evolving space of the public cloud is going to fundamentally change over the next 5 to 6 years. So we built our own abstraction layer such that the developers really need not focus on writing their applications. But, the developers need to focus only in writing their applications, not in how their applications are deployed. What allows us to do today is we use the same platform to decide. So if as a developer, I believe that part of my application should be on public cloud and part of it should be in private cloud, the underlying platform will automatically take care of that, which is something that we have done. Scheduling is something based on our jobs and what we do. The scale of end of job processing that we do, we had to write our own scheduler, which is something that we are absolutely focused on. I'm going to move on to something. There are a couple of sessions that you find during the course of the next 3 days where a few of my colleagues across the globe have flown in. I suggest you attend that, but we basically monitor everything. We monitor everything today. We do not believe on a polling base. We are monitoring on a system call basis. And the reason is the amount of data you're going to collect based on that is going to be extremely powerful in terms of the intelligence it provides you from a business transaction perspective. Let's talk about context. For my previous speaker spoke about context. Context is going to be very important because while the public cloud is a very interesting phenomenon about speaking about, you can deploy your applications, et cetera, enterprises don't work that way. When you have more than 5 applications, knowing how each of them talk to each other, making sure the dependency and interdependency of all of them. So we effectively model our applications, and then we deploy those applications on a real-time basis. The power of modeling is anytime something goes wrong, your ability to reconstruct that from scratch is absolutely simplified. So it falls in the line of getting a public cloud strategy much effectively out there. Last but least, we believe there are enough applications out there, but we have created what's called as a secured container. So we have our own platform called as Orbit, which effectively allows you to deploy applications on the public side without really compromising on your data, and it effectively allows us to get our user community out there. There are other things that we are focused on, especially in the world of collaboration, which we believe are going to be fundamental. But there's no other firm more equipped than the financial services to deal with this problem, because our appreciation of in-country laws, cyber laws, but more importantly, understanding how regulations in every country appreciates and understands this actually puts us in a very good positions. My last slide, this is just the beginning. We are at booth 27. I suggest, we couldn't cover everything that we have today, but you have a lot out there. There are a couple of sessions that we are also presenting today about the engineering stuff we are doing here. I wish all of you good luck for the next 3 days, and thank you so much for your time today.